man?
Yo.
It's been a long time coming. So, since this is the first time, we're doing this, let's see how it turns out. If we end up looking too cringy, we'll just keep the audio. So, let's see if the video actually makes it. But, yeah, man. So, how you been?
Been good. Enjoying my semester here.
Yeah.
It's good to be back.
And what's your music scene been like outside Sam?
Outside Sam, I've been based out of Delhi for the past 4.5 to 5 years, and I was teaching there also, and I've been playing a lot of gigs, so a lot of sessions and some bands that I play with full time, and different kind of music. Some funk bands, some blues bands, some contemporary jazz, different stuff, Latin. So it's been good.
Very cool. So, one of the first things I want to ask you, Vatsal, is how did you get into music? Like when, was there a moment when you realized that this is what I'm going to do, or was it more like a gradual thing where you kind of just went with the flow and it just turned out?
So it's a funny story. How I got into playing piano was because my dad just got me a keyboard because it's a societal thing where
of course
the child plays piano and the parent can brag. Yeah. That's how I got into it.
Did you also have that thing where when people come home, they are like, "Acha, inko ye baja ke sunao.
Yes.
Ye is movie ka gana baja ke sunao. Acha beta Vatsal." And
that happened a lot. And by the time I was in like class 8 or something, I was like, no, I just enjoy doing this, and I think I'm gonna do this full time. But
in class 8.
8. Yeah.
Okay, so that's like when you were 13 years old.
Yeah, something around that.
That's crazy.
But like my parents were taking it light, and by the time I was finishing high school, I was like, no, I'm gonna do this. But they were like, no, you're not gonna do this. So I ended up doing BCom and all of the stuff that they wanted me to do, and then I was like, no, I'm not doing MBAs, no chance. And then I just came here.
But were you good in your studies, like your BCom and your? Were you like relatively good in that, or?
Yeah, I won't say I was bad because I never put in any work, and I managed to do decently.
Okay, but you still so decently. Okay,
yeah,
so you did kind of have a choice at least. It wasn't like in my case, for example, I sucked so bad in those studies that for me it wasn't even a choice. But so you also studied at SAM. In fact, most of us, I think, sitting in this room right now, and there are a lot of us. We all studied at SAM, and over the years, and now all of us are in some way or the other associated with SAM. So, what was it like for you? Just like getting this formal. First of all, did you study formally before this?
I actually did. So I was learning a lot of Hindustani classical music as well as Western classical music while growing up. I started with Hindustani, and then I eventually took up to piano, so which was like the Western classical side of it. Did some grades and stuff, and then eventually my teacher said, listen, the grades are slowing you down, you're not doing grades anymore.
You are a great teacher then.
Yes. I am blessed, honestly. So she made me stop giving grades, and it was just like we would spend hours listening to a lot of classical music eventually.
Wow.
And it was leaps and bounds of growth at that time when I was a kid, and it was very subconscious. It's not something that I was planning to do or preparing to do. It just happened because I was enjoying doing it, like just being in the moment. And as a kid, you don't really think about all of those things also.
Sure.
So it was like that.
Right. So, what was your experience like at music school?
At SAM, it was amazing because I had amazing teachers, and the facility here is amazing. I've always said this, like, you have all the resources in the world here and zero distractions.
Right.
Which is enough for you to be a musician and live your dreams.
Right. So, I've known you personally since you were a student at SAM, and I've always known you to be a pretty prolific jazz pianist, right? Not to say that you can't play other styles, but I've always known you as the jazz guy, who I know. So, what got you into jazz? Or first of all, am I wrong to assume that? And
so I was introduced to jazz only after I came to SAM actually. So it's been
which is when I met you. So.
Yeah. Before that, I was playing Western classical and stuff. What got me into is the freedom, honestly, to being able to express in any way possible and stuff like that. So that is what drew me to it, and the teachers that I had here, they had a very strong influence on me, and they shaped as to what I was playing eventually. So having two Brazilian pianists, having Karina teaching drums, and Sid Jacobs.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, like just hearing these guys play was what
Sure.
influenced me into it, I guess.
So can you elaborate a little bit on the freedom part that you mentioned? And if you want to show some stuff that's, I think I'm sure, we would love to see that as well.
Yeah, so
Because that's something like a lot of jazz people, a lot of jazz musicians talk about is the freedom that's there in jazz, like as opposed to other styles where we kind of, like for example in a metal band, every night we go play exactly the same notes in exactly the same order and exactly the same rhythm, like pretty much the same dynamics, pretty much the same tempo, but every jazz gig that you play is different, and that's one thing I keep hearing these jazz guys talk about is that the freedom that's there in jazz. So, could you maybe talk a little bit about what your journey was in trying to achieve this freedom?
I mean, started off knowing absolutely nothing and not being able to understand what's happening, and eventually just getting into the idea of improvisation and everything is what allowed me to be free. I feel sometimes playing over changes and all of that, and I mean it's not just the changes part, it's the rhythmic freedom it's given me, the melodic sense of freedom it's given me, the expressive sort of freedom that it's given me, the interpretational sort of freedom it's given me. Just the open-mindedness is basically what has drew me to it. And like for example, like you asked me, let's say for example the song that I just played, like on some other day I would probably interpret it like I mean it's just like a simple idea of just sort of changing the meter a little bit,
right.
But it's the way I feel at that moment and I just wanna express.
So it's like different interpretations of the same motif.
Yeah, things like that, and then improvisation also.
Right.
Let's say for example let's say if I'm just holding the swam and I'll be basically expressing myself the way I feel at that moment. So.
So one of the things I noticed you doing very briefly was you were singing some of the notes that you were playing, and this is something I've seen a lot of guitar players also do, Sid Jacobs included, right? You want to maybe so why do you do that?
Basically, it's to feel grounded and to be able to express what I'm thinking in terms of playing and not the other way around.
Right. So for example. I'm not obviously like a jazz musician, but I feel like I can sing stuff in my head too.
Yes.
So what would you say is the best way for me to get on my instrument directly what's going on in my head? Because I think that's what a lot of us are trying to pursue. Basically the sounds that are in our head, how do we get that to come out of a speaker? Whether it's through a keyboard or a guitar or whatever. So what would you say is the best way to kind of achieve that?
Singing is a very great way of expressing what you want to play. So if you're able to like say tara para to pa pa da do 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 do. If you can bring those ideas out. Just this was one exercise that one of my teachers did with me, where he would just make me sing phrases and make me play them without having played them before. So I have to sing, have to be able to understand what I'm singing and then play it. So that is one great way I feel to bring out exactly what you want on your instrument.
Nice. So this is this. Tell me about what's happening with your music and your bands, all the different projects that you're with. And where you guys are at right now.
So I play with like a few bands that is releasing some music right now. Like for example, Submarine in Space has just recently released the second album, which is called F5.
You guys did a music video recently too.
Yes, we have 2 music videos that are out. The entire album is out on audio on all streaming platforms and stuff. Apart from that, I myself have a piano trio as well, so I'm writing some stuff for that. Hopefully next year I can release that as well. There is a couple of other bands also that I'm recording music with soon when I go back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It'll happen, I think. But yeah, the most recent release is this. I was touring also with a couple of acts as a session player. I just did a Northeast tour with Tucker, another alumni from here.
Of course.
It was great.
Shout out to Tucker Navam.
Yeah.
Amazing guitarist.
Yes.
Another metal guy who went to the dark side.
So we played a few festivals around Northeast, Zero and Manipur, and it was amazing.
Yeah, so Zero is amazing, I've heard.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, just the view to what you're playing is beautiful, so...
Sure.
Yeah.
And of course, like, the Northeast music scene is something which is pretty unique in India, compared to maybe, bigger cities like Bombay and Delhi and all that. Northeast has got like a very... what's a good word to describe it? It's not a niche there, this music. It's a lot more mainstream because I guess almost every household you have, some musicians who play. And being a musician by itself is not such a taboo like how it is probably, like if you were from Northeast, like you probably wouldn't have had to do your commerce degree.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Okay, let's just circle back to what you're doing right now, which is like teaching here.
Yeah.
What's the experience been like for you? It's almost like it's come full circle in a lot of ways, where you were a student here and now you get to do for more people what you kind of experienced a few years back. So how's that experience been?
I mean, it's been amazing, honestly, because just getting to share what all I learned here and the experience that I was able to gather in the last 5-6 years is just a very nice feeling to have. And I personally always encourage people to study music and learn music, and hence I do not want to move out of this country either. Like, I want to just stay here and help as many people as possible understand music and learn music.
Yeah, I mean that's really noble. So, do you think you're a strict teacher?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would.
Of course, I know that you're a strict teacher.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest challenge in teaching? And first tell me that, then I'll ask you my next question.
Biggest challenge is to understand every different student that I'm dealing with. Everyone comes from a different background, understanding what situations they are in, which background they've come from, what level of music they are in, and trying to understand and balance their personal life while trying to teach them music and everything, so that...
Because it's a Gurukula, of course.
So, it's nice, but because I feel I'm not too old, they relate to me a lot more.
Okay.
So it's great that way, because I can be blunt and honest sometimes and they understand
where you're coming from. And of course. In fact, that's something that, I also felt when I was here. So, for example, I had, an amazing teacher, Ofer Ganot. He's a brilliant jazz bebop guitar player from Israel, right?
Okay.
And, I think he was probably... how old was he, Vishnu? Ofer?
Like...
when we were studying here?
Late 40s, I guess?
Probably, he was probably mid 40s, maybe early 50s, I don't know. But, super... he played with what was the drummer he played with? Jimmy Cobb and stuff, right? So super bebop guy. And I wasn't able to learn too much from him. Okay. Although when I used to watch him play, it was almost like... it was too awesome for me to even comprehend.
Right.
Whereas there were some people, there were some exchange students here at that time from the US who were probably doing their masters or something like that. So they had learned a lot of these things that I was learning then. They had learned it just few years back. And I was able to learn it much more easier from them. I think part of it is because they learned it just few years back. Yeah, so it was a lot more fresh for them. Whereas Ofer's knowledge was almost, you could say, clouded with all the experience that he had.
Yeah.
So he had to really dig out stuff, like the basic stuff, which, for me it was not basic, for him it was really basic. So I get the whole age thing. So I asked you what your challenge was. Now I want to ask you, what do you think, gives you the most feeling of fulfillment or pleasure in teaching? Like what makes you feel awesome about teaching?
just seeing my students grow over a period of time. Let's say, for example, there are some students that literally can't do anything when they come to a music school, and being there, seeing them grow in the last, let's say, 10 weeks or something, where they're able to not just sing but identify pitches and being able to do the ear training class, for example. I see a lot of progress and I see good potential, and that ladder, they climbing them climbing ladder, and it's a great feeling. It's of course a small thing, but in the larger frame of picture, if you look at it, like let's say 5 years down the line, if I see some of my students doing really well, performing everywhere, it's gonna really make me happy.
Amazing. All right, man. I mean, like always, it was a pleasure speaking to you, and I hope we get to do this soon.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, dude.
Cheers, man.